الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So we're going to have an introduction talking about the ruling on holidays in Islam. And before we do that, I wanted to ask everyone a question. So a lot of us are either grew up here in America or lived in America for a long time. Could we mention some of the customs of Christmas? What do they do on Christmas?
Singing carols.
Singing carols. Giving gifts. Christmas tree. What do they do to the Christmas tree?
Decorate it.
You have to decorate it and put a star on top. Okay, what else? Presents. We said, yeah, they're giving gifts.
Food.
We have food. There's a big thing missing, yeah. Yeah. Santa Claus. What does Santa Claus do? Right, but how does he get in your house? He gets in through the chimney. And how did he get there in the first place? Huh? He flew on these flying reindeer. What else? Where does he make the gifts? In the North Pole. We could go on and on, right? About Christmas and all of the things attached to it. Now, let's ask the big question. What does this have to do with Christianity? Or what does this have to do with Jesus? Where is the connection here?
Religion.
What's that? Right, but where is all the Christmas tree and the decorating the tree and the Santa Claus and from the North Pole and stuff? What's the connection of that with Isa alayhi salam? They say he's born as the Son of God, but even if we say just the day he's born, where's the connection here?
The major, there's not really a connection. There's no mention of the Trinity in the Bible.
There's no connection here. There's no connection here. That's what I believe. I mean, I think that's obvious, right? There's no connection between all of these customs that we just mentioned. And we could have gone on everything that people say about Christmas and do on Christmas. And we say, this all is new. This all is new. If we want to say, we could say it's like a bid'ah to the Christians. It's an innovation in terms of the Christianity. Because none of this has anything to do with saying Jesus was born on this day. So, with that said, we want to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that our religion is perfectly preserved. And the religion of Islam, we have to preserve it, otherwise we will be exactly like them. Maybe we have some Muslim holiday in the future which has a tree and we decorate the tree and we say that there's some like big sheikh who comes and flies and comes down your chimney on that day, for example. If it's not for the protection of our religion and sticking to the Quran and the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, our religion would be completely unrecognizable. Especially with the fact that how vast is Islam spread across the world. It's literally in every single country in the world. The religion of Islam is in every country. And these Muslims have been living there for decades or centuries or since the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So imagine Muslims around the world, a religious group around the world in so many different countries. Imagine if everyone said this is how we are going to practice Islam. We are all going to practice according to how we feel. And we're going to make up things as we go along. And whatever we feel like doing, we're going to add it to the religion. Then African Islam would be completely unrecognizable from Arab Islam, which would be completely unrecognizable from Russian Islam, and it would be completely unrecognizable from American Islam. Nobody would recognize one another. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected our religion. And this introduction, inshallah, we're going to go into it in a bit of detail, and that will clarify a lot of things about holidays. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected this religion. The biggest way He protected the religion is by protecting the Quran. إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we sent down the Quran and we will protect it. the preservation of the Quran doesn't just mean that the Quran is memorized and preserved and it was not changed. And that in and of itself is a miracle. That the Quran has never been changed, nobody's been able to tamper with it over 1,400 years. Still nobody has made the slightest change in it. Every single harakah, every single letter, every single pronunciation is preserved. So not only that, but everything associated with the Quran is preserved. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserved for us the science of tajweed, so that a Moroccan Muslim and a Mauritanian Muslim and a Chinese Muslim, they would all recite Quran according to the same rules. The rules of tajweed preserve the pronunciation of the letters and the pronunciation of the Quran. And then the tafsir of the Quran has been preserved over the centuries also. This is the tafsir of Ibn Abbas. He said it near the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Until today we have all of these tafsir preserved. The Arabic language was preserved. If we have the Quran perfect in a book somewhere, but we lost the Arabic language, we would have a big wall between us and understanding the Quran. So Allah preserving the Arabic language so that we speak the same language today that was spoken at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. This is also another way that إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. Other languages, for example, the English language, is completely unrecognizable from about 800 years ago. There is Middle English, and there's Old English. There's books like written in Old English preserved today that if you listen to it and read it, you would not recognize it as English at all. So these are languages, we're talking 700 or 800 years, that you cannot recognize it. But the Quran, the Arabic language, we can recognize the language of the Quran, and it's more than 1,400 years old, or revealed. The Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ also falls in this meaning of the preservation of the Quran. And the hadith are preserved and memorized, and we have the books, and the scholars said this hadith is authentic and this hadith is weak. All of that, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve the Quran, all of that comes along with it. So we see the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah preserved our religion for us. That's number one. Number two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perfected the religion. So the religion that came down to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the same religion today. Whatever was the religion at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, that should be our religion today. We do not need to add or subtract anything. Yes, certain situations might come up in our day and age. We live in a different time, we live in a different society, we live in America. There's a long gap of time between us and the Prophet ﷺ. There's new issues, there's new business transactions that come up. Muslims live in different lands that they didn't used to live in. This requires new understanding of our rulings, but it doesn't change the main fact, which is that Islam is perfect. It was perfect at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and it's perfect now. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. Allah says, on this day we have completed, اليوم أكملت لكم, I have perfected or completed my favor upon you. And completed أتممت لكم دينكم, I have completed your religion. وأتممت لكم دينكم وأكملت عليكم نعمتي, and I have completed my favor upon you. وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمَ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with Islam as our religion. So Islam is perfect. We don't need to change it at all. Actually, we are prohibited from changing our religion. In a number of ahadith, and the whole Quran, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, his words, مَنْ أَحْدَثَ فِي أَمْرِنَا هَذَا مَا لَيْسَ مِنْهُ فَهُوَ رَدٌّ. Whoever introduces something to our religion that is not part of it, it is rejected. So anyone who wants to change the religion and say, I think this makes sense, we should add it to the religion, we would say, the Prophet ﷺ said, it's rejected. Anything you want to add to Islam, the Prophet ﷺ said it should be rejected. Now with these introductions, and first and foremost before that, we have to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that our religion is perfect and preserved in that case. This is a blessing for us. Because if we look at, for example, the story of Salman al-Farisi, when he was looking for the true religion, he couldn't find it. And he went from one priest to another, and finally the last priest that he arrived at, when he was dying, Salman al-Farisi said to him, "Who should I go to today to learn from him?" So that man said, "I don't know anybody on the face of the earth who is upon the correct religion now. But there is a prophet which is going to come in the end of times." So imagine some people spend their entire life looking for the truth, looking for what's the correct religion. And for us, we were born into it, or we were given it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this religion, and He preserved it for us, and He guided us to a tawheed and to worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a huge blessing that we can never thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough for. So with that said, now what does Islam say about holidays? We have a number of ayat in the Quran, and we have some ahadith from the Prophet ﷺ, and then we have some narrations from the Sahaba. So one by one we'll take them. First of all, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about holidays, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَشْهَدُونَ الزُّورَ وَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِاللَّغْوِ مَرُّوا كِرَامًا. وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَشْهَدُونَ الزُّورَ. Those people who do not witness false activity or az-zur. What is the interpretation of az-zur? Mujahid and others from the Mufassirin, from the scholars of Tafsir, they said أعياد المشركين. A number of scholars, they mentioned this, that وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَشْهَدُونَ الزُّورَ means they do not attend or witness the holidays of the mushrikeen. They do not attend or witness the holidays of the mushrikeen. In the Sunnah, the Prophet ﷺ, in the very famous hadith, narrated by Imam Ahmad and by Abu Dawood and others, قدم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم المدينة ولهم يومان يلعبان فيهما. That the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he made the hijrah, or he came to Al-Madinah. And the people of Al-Madinah had 2 days that they were playing in, meaning it was like a holiday for them. They had 2 holidays. So the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, ما هذان اليومان? What are these 2 days? So they said, كنا نلعب فيهما في الجاهلية. These are 2 days that we used to celebrate in the time of Jahiliyyah. So the Prophet ﷺ said, إن الله قد أبدلكم بهما خيرا منهما عيد الأضحى وعيد الفطر. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allah replaced those 2 days with 2 days which are better than them, Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ أَبْدَلَكُمْ بِهِمَا. Allah has replaced for you those 2 days with 2 days that are better for them. So the ulama, they said when explaining this hadith, that Allah has replaced the other holidays with Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. The Prophet ﷺ didn't say, you have those holidays, that's fine, but on top of that, إن الله أضاف, for example, that Allah gave you on top of those 2 days, Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. No, He didn't say Allah gave you along with those holidays, the holidays of Eid al-Adha. Rather, He said Allah has replaced for you those days with the days of Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. Meaning that these Islamic holidays, they have replaced other holidays, and we should make them our main focus as Muslims. Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. These are our 2 holidays as Muslims. And then the day of Jum'ah is considered to be like a weekly Eid. The day of Jum'ah is considered to be like a weekly Eid. Some scholars mention on top of that, so we have a number of evidences in Islam. We have the Quran, an ayah from the Quran, or a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. On top of that, we have something called al-ijma'. Al-ijma'. which means consensus. The Muslims agreed on it. The Muslim ulama agreed on something. And that is that a number of scholars mentioned that the Muslims, they would live in a lot of different lands after the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And there were Jews and Christians and other religions. The ulama and the scholars of those lands, they never said, okay, we are celebrating this holiday with the Jews, or we're celebrating this holiday with the Christians. They would always leave it off. The Muslims would only celebrate Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. So this means it's a consensus, that it's an ijma', that the Muslims do not celebrate the religious holidays of the other people. And for most of history, all of the holidays are religious. The meaning behind them is a religious meaning. And we'll talk about, inshallah, towards the end, what about like a secular holiday, what about the federal holidays? And then finally we said there's some narrations of Sahaba. So that's in terms of the proofs regarding holidays. So we'll finish off with that, which is that some of the Sahaba also mentioned the rulings on holidays. Umar radiallahu anhu said, in the narrated by Al-Bayhaqi, in an authentic chain, اجتنبوا أعداء الله في أعياده. Beware of the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or stay far from the enemies of Allah on the day of their a'yad. And he said, فَإِنَّ السَّخْطَةَ تَنْزِلُ عَلَيْهِ. The anger of Allah comes down on people while they are celebrating these holidays. Meaning that they're celebrating holidays for an idol, or to associate partners with Allah, or to commit shirk, and they're celebrating it and happy about it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He is angry with them on those days when they are celebrating shirk. They are celebrating worshiping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abdullah bin Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu, he said, من بنى ببلاد الأعاجم وصنع نيروزهم ومهرجانهم وتشبه بهم ثم يموت أو حتى يموت وهم كذلك حشر معهم يوم القيامة. Abdullah bin Amr ibn al-As, he said, whoever lives in the lands of the non-Muslims and he celebrates their holidays and he imitates them, he will be resurrected with them on the Day of Judgment. This is a very scary narration. He's saying that if you just live with the people and you imitate them completely in everything, even in their holidays, it's as if you are one of them. And then you will be resurrected with them on the Day of Judgment. So, with that said, I think we have a clear idea of the picture of what does a Muslim celebrate in terms of his religion. We will only celebrate Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. And this should be the main focus of every Muslim. And we should be proud of that fact. And this is, alhamdulillah, something which is not as difficult as it used to be. For example, maybe some of the brothers here who are older than me, they might know that if you were not celebrating Christmas and you're going to school, public school, it was looked at as something very strange. And everybody would maybe pick on you or find it something very strange. Alhamdulillah, nowadays, and especially in diverse communities, the teachers will ask the parents, is it okay if we have this holiday celebration? Is it okay if your kids participate with us? So there's, alhamdulillah, there's more expectation that some people might not celebrate these holidays. So we as Muslims, we should be proud of the fact that we are Muslim. And if our children are going to go and celebrate some holiday at school, or they're going to have a holiday celebration, we should say that, no, we don't participate in that. I don't want my child to be in that kind of celebration, because we do not want to be people who are imitating and following along with other people. We might say it's an innocent thing. And it starts off as maybe one time, and then eventually that child's whole identity becomes that he imitates the people around him. He has no pride in his Islam. But when we tell our children that we are Muslims, this is our holiday, we celebrate Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr, we don't celebrate this or that, then the child grows up with the identity that he's a Muslim. He understands he has a pride in it. The Prophet ﷺ said, لَتَتَّبِعُنَّ سُنَنَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ شبرا بشبر وذراعا بذراع حتى لو سلكوا جحر ضب لدخلتموه قالوا يا رسول الله اليهود والنصارى قال فمن. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith narrated by Bukhari, وكما قال, he said that you will follow the path of those people before you in every length, like handspan by handspan. You are going to follow them very closely, the people before you. To the point that if they entered the hole of a lizard's hole, you would enter it after them. So the Sahaba, they said, Ya Rasulullah, do you mean the Jews and the Christians? So the Prophet ﷺ said, who else? Who else? So imagine, what's the benefit of a person following somebody into the hole of a lizard? That means that even if they're doing the worst things, we are going to start imitating them. And unfortunately, we see that to be a reality, right? We see that the Muslims, naturally, when Muslims are not the most powerful, or actually any country or culture, when they're not powerful, they will start to imitate the powerful. So, who's powerful in this day and age? Europe, America, the West in general, is the powerful countries, we have to admit it. So what do we do as Muslims? We start to imitate the more powerful. Ibn Khaldun, he says that al-maghlub abadan mula'un bi-taqlid al-ghalib. He said the people who are defeated, they always are imitating their colonizers, the people who defeated them. So the people who are weak, we start to have an inferiority complex. We feel like we are weak, they're better than us, they're stronger than us, they're more advanced than us. Maybe we should do what they're doing. Maybe we should imitate them. So the Prophet ﷺ said, you're going to follow the ways of the people before you, little by little, until the point that if they entered a lizard's den, you would enter after them. No benefit at all for you to enter into such a small hole. Actually, it's something very strange and it's something very uncomfortable. But still, you just want to imitate them. You just want to be like them. And this shows us the truth of the Prophet ﷺ. This is exactly what has happened. We'll finish off with a few points. I know that it says on the flyer you'll be surprised by some of the origins of the holidays, but some of you may know more about that than me, but inshallah we'll just talk about a few. From them is, for example, Halloween. When we say that Halloween is a very innocent holiday, let your kids just get dressed up in costumes, they have fun doing it, they go get candy, something very fun. If we look at the origins of it, we would say there's a problem here. There's a problem between what's celebrated nowadays and the origin of it. And the origin of Halloween is that it is the Scottish or the Irish Day of the Dead. The Day of the Dead, meaning when the souls of those who had died during the year, they were allowed back into the land of the living. Like the souls of people who had died in that year, they're allowed to come back on that one day. So the ghosts and whatnot are going through the land. So then what do people do? They have to wear masks and they have to celebrate, they have to cover themselves with masks as a way of hiding themselves. So therefore, even though we would say it's something very innocent and it's not a big deal, if we look at the origins of it, we would say that it is a big deal. There is a pagan root to this. Even bigger, or an even more clear example, because the roots are still visible until today, is Christmas or Easter. Because these holidays are still very religious holidays. Even though we said with all the things that were added, Santa Claus and the trees and stuff like that, but the origin of it is, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, to say that Allah had a son. And that this son was born on the day of Christmas. And that his son died and then was resurrected. Which holiday is that? That's Easter. This is Easter. So imagine saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a son. And then his son died. And then his son brought himself back from the dead. Because he's a God himself. He's the son of God. So then he came back from death. And that proved and showed that he's truly the son of God. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. So we as Muslims, if we say it's okay, we just like the look of the Christmas tree in our house, that's the reason we have it. This is a very big problem, that we are celebrating a holiday which says that Allah has a son. Look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran about the fact that He has a son, or the claim that He has a son. In Surah Maryam, وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ الرَّحْمَنُ وَلَدًا لَقَدْ جِئْتُمْ شَيْئًا إِدًّا تكاد السماوات يتفطرن منه وتنشق الأرض وتخر الجبال هدا أن دعوا للرحمن ولدا وما ينبغي للرحمن أن يتخذ ولدا إن كل من في السماوات والأرض إلا آتي الرحمن عبدا لقد أحصاهم وعدهم عدا وكلهم آتيه يوم القيامة فردا. Very powerful verses in Arabic. The English translation will not do justice. But it says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that they say Ar-Rahman took a son. And they are saying a huge statement. This is a very huge claim of theirs. The mountains are almost ripped apart or crumbling. And the sky is almost ripped apart from the fact that they say that Ar-Rahman took a son, that He has a son. And it's not fitting that Allah will ever take a son. Because everything on the heavens and the earth, in the heavens and the earth, will come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, alone and as a slave in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the prophets, even Prophet Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, Jesus, everyone will come alone as a slave in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us the seriousness of saying Allah has a son. And then, unfortunately, as Muslims, we might say, oh, it's not a big deal. We can bring the Christmas tree in our house. It's okay just to celebrate a bit. So we see a great difference between what Allah says and saying that it's not a big deal and just taking it as something light. What are some alternatives to celebrating these holidays? What are some alternatives to celebrating the holidays? First of all, we have to make Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr the funnest days of the year. If we want our children to respect that these are our Islamic holidays, we have to make them the funnest days of the year. A lot of parents, they don't even take their kids out of school on Eid. Or they might go pray the Eid prayer at 7 in the morning, and then they drop their kids back off at school that same day. If you have school that day, that means it's not really a holiday, right? You have to make it fun. You have to take the kids somewhere. If it's impossible, then say, inshallah, the next day, we're going to go somewhere very fun, or the next weekend, we're going to do something very fun because it's Eid. And we're going to celebrate it, and we're going to do something very big. So then our children as Muslims will look at Eid just like other kids are waiting so much for Christmas or other holidays. So that's very important that we make it very fun so that our children are not looking elsewhere. And then finally, I will end with 2 points, 2 questions. The first is, people will say, what about like secular holidays? What about holidays that don't have a religious meaning? So the ulama have said, as we've said throughout this talk, that religious holidays, it's a must as Muslims that we stay away from them. We do not celebrate religious holidays. If it's a secular holiday, for example, a Independence Day. In America or many other countries, we have Independence Days. So the scholars, they have a difference of opinion regarding this matter. The first opinion is that no, the Prophet ﷺ said every holiday is being replaced by Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. The second opinion, they say these are not really holidays in the first place. These are more like customary things that people do in society, but it has no religious meaning to it. To celebrate a Independence Day, or to celebrate, for example, Thanksgiving, that there's, as far as I know, Allahu A'lam, that there's no religious meaning behind it. So this opinion is beneficial, especially for those who are coming from a convert background. Their family is not a Muslim family. So, for example, if the family wants to invite them over for Thanksgiving, and you already turned down, for example, the Christmas gathering, then to make a concession that to say, okay, on Thanksgiving, a non-religious holiday, that we could get together and we could be together as a family. Inshallah, this is an easier opinion that some ulama have said, so we could take that opinion if there's a need for it. If there's a need for it. Should we as Muslims go and start, celebrating every secular holiday also? I mean, as Brother Abdul Qawi mentioned, there's more than 200 holidays. So if we kind of open that door that we celebrate every holiday, we are also kind of lessening the importance of Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. Because it's a big difference to say that we have 2 big days in the year versus saying like every holiday pretty much of the year we're going to be celebrating it. So that's one thing. The ruling on secular holidays, we said there's one opinion, which is that it falls within the ruling of any holiday. And the second is that if it's secular, it's more of a customary matter that people do within society that does not have any religious significance. And also included in this would be birthdays. So likewise, we could be easier in terms of birthdays if there's a need to do so, especially for example converts and whatnot. Then this would be inshallah okay according to many scholars. Why? Because so if we stay away from birthdays to be on the safe side, that's good. By the way, if we're saying we don't celebrate birthdays as Muslims and we don't do it with our kids, that's good. Alhamdulillah. We're taking the safer opinion. But if we do allow it, then it has, like we said, the opinion of some of the scholars. Even more so when we say that, or they say that a birthday is not a holiday in the first place. Why? Because a holiday is something which society celebrates, whereas a birthday is a personal matter. Like nobody outside of your house is going to celebrate your birthday. So it's not something which is considered to be a holiday in the first place, rather it's something that is just cultural that people do on every single person's independent day that they were born on. So the same thing exists here, that there's room for difference of opinion, inshallah, in this matter also. And then finally, we may get we may have some people ask that, this talk was a little bit too harsh. And how are we ever going to be in this society if we are staying away from the holidays and we don't celebrate with people? How are we ever going to be considered American Muslims if we are pulling ourselves away like this? So the answer to that is that we are encouraged to be good members of society. We are encouraged to be American Muslims. We are encouraged to be a great part of this society and this country. That doesn't mean agreeing with everything that's being done. It doesn't mean blindly following everything that is done in that society. Rather, what does it mean to be an American Muslim or a Muslim in any country? It means that you are a valuable member of society. It means that you are honest. When you go to work, and people see that Muhammad or Fatima at work, they are very honest people, they're very good people. When they see that a Muslim is an entrepreneur or somebody who is wealthy, and they give their money to help good causes. When they see that the Muslim family next door, they are very conservative and they have good values and they protect their family and they protect their children. Their children are not going around causing trouble. Rather, they're a very respectable family and they're my neighbors. I know them, I live next to them. These kind of things, that's what it means to be a good member of society. That's what it means to be an American Muslim. That we are helpful to the people around us. We care for the people around us. All of the prophets, when they were sent to their people, they would say, Ya qawmi, oh my people. So we should feel a concern for the people around us. We should want the best for them. That does not include in the least bit imitating the people around us. We don't have to imitate it. We can take our own path as Muslims, and we say we do this because of our religion, we don't do this because of our religion, but we are very helpful to the American society, and we want the best for the people around us. That's what it means to be a part of this culture. So that's inshallah response to that issue. Brother, if you have anything to add, feel free inshallah. And then we'll open the floor for questions.
والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم علمنا بما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Sheikh Hussin, ذاتي خبري بتفصيل مجلسة بكرة يكسر وقت زيكس ششبيخة مصدر زيكس كان مقاطع سارجات من إنكار نمیکنیم ولی این کار را هم نمیکنیم. رسول اکرم صلی الله علیه وسلم در برخوردشان با غیر مسلمانان با اصول اخلاق و انسانیت علاقه داشتند و بر اساس عدل و مساوات با آنها ارتباط برقرار می‌کردند و همچنان به اسلام دعوتشان می‌کردند. فرصت ما شماست که غیر مسلمان یک فرصت طلایی است به هم نه که پشت کارهای از اونا بگردیم و ما اونا برشیم خصوصا در امور دینی. قال تعالى وقولوا للناس حسنا كما قال تعالى وقل لعبادي يقول التي هي احسن. يعني خدای تعالی په قرآن کریم وایي قرآن کریم کې مسلمانانو ته وایي چې مسلمانانو ته امر کړی دی خلق رب الشیطان الرجیم خلقو ته هغه ووایي چې ښه دي. رسول الله صلی الله علیه وسلم وفرمایل چې ښه خبره صدقه دی. پیغمبر اکرم صلی الله علیه وسلم از مهربانترین مردم در کلام بودند و خوشایندترین آنها در کلمات بودند. مشتاق بودند که دلهای همه را به دست آورند. چې این وقت باید دی وقت کې باید یو مسلمان په توګه پوه شو چې مینه او محبت او وفاداري مهمه و حساس دینی مسئله داره. خصوصا بعضی اعیادو کې چې دوی تشکیل کوي چې باید موږ پوسو چې خدای نخواسته کوم شرک یا کوم بدعت کې خطا نشو. ما باید ایمان و عقیده اولاد خود را شیخ حسین میگفتن بسیار مهم است که جدا محافظت کنیم در اینجا چون که این کار آستا میشه در یک شب یک روز یک ماه یک سال نمیشه. خداوند میگن در قرآن شریف ان تبروهم و تقسطوا الیهم یعنی شه در ملنه دوی سره او سالمه کار د اسلامي لحاظ نه او انصاف او صداقت کول غیر مسلمانان سره واجب ده. ګرانو محترم ورونو علماو شیخ حسین وویل په اتفاق سره چې ویلي دي چې هر څوک د دوی په اخترونو کې ګډون کوي هغه د دوی د دین په دستور کې ګډون کوي. دی یو مسلمان باید د غیر مسلمانانو پیروي کولو څخه ځان وساتي. په ځانګړې توګه د دوی د مذهبي جشنونو تجدید کول. خدای دې کړي چې هغه مسلمانانو نیکو مقدسو مسلمانانو نیکو اعمالو ناپوهي په حالت کې باطل او خراب شي والعیاذ بالله. دلته مهمه یو خطرناک خبره دا ده چې خدای تعالی د قرآن شریف نه کې یا بني لا تشرك بالله ان الشرك لظلم عظيم. باز د دیگر آیات الرجيم ويوم يعض الظالم على يديه يقول يا ليتني اتخذت مع الرسول سبيلا. دعيت معك ليتني لم اتخذ فلانا خليلا. این ظلم در اینجا در دوش یک چیز است و او ظلم چی است که شرک است. خدا نخواسته به تجلیل بعض اعیادشان که در اونجا میگن که عیسی علیه السلام توبه نعوذ بالله فرزند خداوند است او را آدم بسیار احتیاط کنه ولو که یک شرط پوشیدن باشه ولو که یک درخت ماندن باشه از غلطی ولو که درخت مفت بیاید از کدام اگر از شخص میاید یا از کدام دیگر فامیلایی که میشناسیم یا از همسایه میاید هیچ ضرورت نیست که من حیث یک مسلمان این کارا را ما کنیم. محکمترین پیمانهای ایمان وفاداری است برای خداوند شرط نیست. رسول اکرم صلی الله علیه و سلم میگه که المرء مع من احب. در دیگه حدیث شریف میگه که لا يحب رجل قوما الا حشر معهم. هر شخص که قوم را دوست دارد با آنها محشور میشوند. و در دیگه حدیث شریف آمده که من تشبه بقوم فهو منهم. و شیخ حسین گفتن آیات دیگه که والذین لا یشهدون الزور. زیادی علماء اسلام و فقها ویلی که یشهدون الزور دغه دینی اعیادو کې شریک اشتراک کول سره لغیر مسلمانانو سره نرمي کول سوغاتونه وړل حلال خوراکات تبادله کول کې هیڅ حرج نشته په شرط دی چې دیني اعیادو کې نه وي دا معنا نه لري دا چې زه خپل عقیده خپل دین او خپل هویت پرېږدم که غیر مسلمانانو ته د کرسمس سره هغه وکړم دا ډېر خطرناکه خبره ده ډېر احتیاط پکار ده په حکمت سره په ښه خبره سره باید د زنا دور پکار دی اقوال و اعمال غیر اسلامي خصوصا د اعیاد غیر اسلامي باز خدا تعالی در یک حدیث قدسی گفتن شتمني ابن آدم وما ينبغي له أن يشتمني أما شتمه إياي فقوله أن لي ولد وأنا الله الأحد الصمد الذي لم ألد ولم أولد ولم يكن لي كفوا أحد. بزرگترین وسیله دعوت به سوی خداوند حسن برخورد با غیر مسلمانان است و احسان بر آنان در گرفتار و عملی است. این پیام دین اسلام و دین مقدس اسلام است. ما سفیرایشان هستیم در این ملک با کلگی را برسانیم. یکی از اولویت های ما است در این ملک و در این جامعه است که ما مسلمانان باید با افتخار مثل شیخ حسین گفتن پیشتر فرمودن که ایدای خود ما را اول خود از فامیل شروع میشه که اولادای خود چی کنیم خوب روز شعاف بگیریم تا که میشه اگر مشکلات کلان ایجاد نمیشه آف بگیریم بفهمن که این چی است و این و در با اینا را بفهمانیم که این اصل و تاریخی دیگه ایدای غیر سکولار ایدایی که دینی است این باید بفهمن اکرام میشه دیگه افتخار کنیم و دیگر را مهمی است که ما نماینده اسلام هستیم و دعوت کنیم. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك واخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.
I didn't understand, but I'm sure it's very powerful. I think we have a few minutes for questions. Is there any questions? Not?
Which holidays do you see as religious holidays from those days?
A holiday to be considered a religious holiday is that the origin of it is religious. And there could be a discussion what if the religious origin is completely gone? For example, like it started off as a religious holiday, but it's completely removed any aspect of religion. Maybe that might be a subject of discussion amongst the scholars. But in general, a religious holiday is one which has a religious origin to it. So this would be many of the holidays commonly celebrated now, like Christmas, Easter, other holidays. So if there's no religious origin to it, it's something purely secular, then we would say it's a non-religious. Any other questions?
So how would you go about, like, say for example, you got a family member that's mushrik, respond to that? Like, I know you're not supposed to listen to it. Like, you listen to your goat, you listen to your parents up until that happens. How do you respond to it?
So that's a good question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the parents, وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ لِتُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. That even if your parents are fighting to get you to commit shirk, to worship other than Allah, you don't obey them, but you treat them very well. So anybody who has family members that are not Muslim, and they are giving you a hard time about your religion, or they want to force you to do things, then you deal with them in the best of manners and the best of character, and you do not do something haram. So if they tell you to do something haram, you don't do it. But at the same time, you refuse with the best of manners. You don't yell at them or make a scene or anything like that. With the best of manners and the best of trying to reason with them, you avoid doing something wrong. How much time do you have?
Some matters, they will, 90% or maybe more than 90% of my neighbors are Christians. What should I tell them when it's like Christmas Day? I don't want to be rude. What should I put up on Facebook or in the background options, especially close neighbors? Is holidays or just salam alaikum or hello, good morning, that's it, nothing else, or
Yes. So there's two things here. There's the Islamic ruling and then the implementation, which is a bit difficult. But the Islamic ruling, as Ibn al-Qayyim and others have said, is that when you say to somebody congratulating them on their holiday, you are basically saying, he said, like congratulating somebody that congratulations for your belief that Allah has a son, for example. If you say that on Christmas, it's like saying congratulations for the day that you believe Allah had a son. So we should not even congratulate people or give them the greetings. And what's the implementation of this? It's very easy if we don't encounter any non-Muslims just to say that, okay, we should not greet people or give them like Christmas greetings. But a lot of us work and we go to our company and we go to school, or like you said, we have our neighbors. So what do we do in that case? We should try our best to, and alhamdulillah, a lot of people do this, I do this. So you try your best just to avoid saying like Merry Christmas. You avoid saying Merry Christmas. So for example, you say like, I hope you have a great break. I hope you have a great vacation. I hope you have a great day off. Enjoy. Well, happy holidays is that's some people's solution, but the problem is it's like you're saying the same thing. If you say happy holidays, you're saying the same thing, but in a roundabout way to say that like, I hope you merry, like, this holiday. So to get around it by saying it in a way that have a great weekend. When they say Merry Christmas to you, you just say thank you, for example, or whatever. You're not accepting it, and you're not saying it back to them. Inshallah, we can all be wise and figure out what to say. I've never had a problem. I've never had somebody get mad at me for not wishing them like a happy Christmas. So we don't have to go out of our way to say it to people. And we could even say like, I hope you have a great vacation. I hope you have a great time off. Hope you enjoy your time with your family this winter, this break. All of that statements, we have not congratulated them on their holiday. They have not congratulated them on the fact that they believe Allah has a son. All we did is we are getting around it in a polite way and a nice way. And like you mentioned in your talk, say good words. So all of these are ways that we can inshallah get around it. And inshallah there's no problem with that. Nobody's going to give you a hard time. Nobody's going to yell at you for not saying Merry Christmas to them. Inshallah. Any other?
Sister, the question is, let's say say for Muslim works in markets, especially in the clothing stores and stuff like that, where there might be Christmas shirts, Christmas hats, Christmas trees and whatnot, and from the perspectives of employment necessity and customer service, perhaps, is, when they're made, they're basically income is depending on it. What's the ruling on that?
So, when it comes to questions like this might require a fatwa, like a alim to give them a certain response, because it may depend on, like, for example, their livelihood. But the general response I can give is to try to avoid it as much as possible. For example, those who work in like a big store, if you worked in like a Walmart, for example, and you try to ask, can I work in this like section as much as possible, like this section where I'm not dealing with something haram. So the scholars, they said you could work in like an environment which is mixed with halal and haram. Like for example, like I said, a big grocery store, and they have like the alcohol section. If you say, can I work in like as an example, can I work in like the fruits and vegetables section, and I don't work in that section, and that's your job, then that would be fine. Even though the store sells alcohol, but if you try your best to avoid it and you work in one section, inshallah, that would be fine. But for her specific question of like I said, it might require a fatwa to say like if they're going to lose their job because of it or something. But inshallah, just try to avoid it as much as possible.
شخصيا وايد داستان رسمي عملي في توابري ومن كشرتا كولي شيء نكري بلتك كاركي تتصفها على ما ويلي تتبازي وحدي كارنك سايكاركي ميمي على طول شان دا مشابهات دا ميمي ما حلال شان دا عمك جائز دخل حرام زي كاركي سايد دخلات كاركي no poi dai na fasta ka akili se karla sa kawaya se ma gata khabara ki basically dik da fatwa karda inshallah mushkil da sun تقول شيء قانون الله سبحانه وتعالى اسمه المشكله كي لو انكار كوي مثلا نظام كل شيء مسؤول فيه الضغط
Ama peki arkadaşlar bir başta diğer tema production last one أو last one especially بدأ الوقت especially خاصة دي بعد ما كان بس كده وكده مش هتقول مش كده مثلا أو
Sister says that when it comes to they don't have alcohol, however, there was some stuff containing pork and bacon, and therefore when sister voiced her concern, they understood, they accepted it, and they kind of excluded her from that section. However, she says that if I keep speaking and complaining about this might become an issue, and that's why I'm scared, or I'm careful of this.
As Muslims, we should always try to avoid haram as much as possible. And if it's reaching the point where it's becoming very difficult for us to stay in one job and to avoid haram, we should try our best to avoid it, and we should try our best to look for a better alternative, halal alternative. But inshallah, if you are avoiding haram as much as possible in your job, and eventually they fire you because of it, then you've done something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. Whoever has taqwa of Allah, Allah will grant for him a way out and something, risk for him from where they didn't expect. So you just try your best to avoid it, and even if it's to the point where they don't like you or they ask you to leave because of that, which I don't think it would reach that point, eventually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you something better.
تاسو څومره کوشش کولی شئ من حیث یو مسلمان هلته هغه ونه کړي خدای نه خواسته که کومه خبره کېږي چې خبره کېږي وایي که کومه خبره پېښه هم کېږي چې خدای نه خواسته اول خو نه کېږي که بیا هم هغه وسو هغه تاسو خدای دپاره یو کار پرېږدئ آیت قرآني یاد وایي ومن یتق الله یرزقه من حیث لا یحتسب داسې یو لورې نه بل خوا نه یوازې راځي او هغه سوزي زیات انشاءالله.
We got the sign that we should end, inshallah. So we'll stop here. Jazakumullah khairan everyone for listening. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه.
Jazakallah khair, Imam Yousef and Brother Hamid. Thank you so much for the lecture and the information. So I promise that we'll have the prize. So inshallah, we're going to go through this list. We'll try to go through it quickly, but I want to preface it first with a couple bits of information. A lot of holidays that we see nowadays originate from harvest festivals. And a lot of harvest festivals have religious origins. So it's a new season, crops are coming in, and people would pray to their deity, whoever they would pray to, in order to ask for a better crop, or to ask for a more bountiful harvest. So I won't explain each one of these as we go through, but for example, Groundhog's Day, that's the example that's on there. It was a religious and social holiday. It has religious origins. In Christianity, there was a time where they would give out, the churches would give out candles for the length of the winter, so that people can work or do whatever they need to do in the evening time. And then Germans brought in the prediction of whether or not the winter would continue, a celebration called Candlemas, which associated the groundhog. So thus Groundhog Day was associated with this religious celebration, which now apparently this little rodent is supposed to predict whether or not there's going to be a longer winter. So that is an example of how, although it's generally perceived as social, it actually has religious origins. Make sense? Okay, so grab out your sheets. We're going to go on the honor system. In order for you to get to your point, you have to get it completely correct. So if you only got one portion of it correct, but didn't get the other portion, it's incorrect. Make sense? Everyone got their sheet ready? Alhamdulillah. Got your pen ready? Okay, go through the first one. New Year's Day. What is it? Social and religious? Aha, interesting. Anybody disagree? Social, religious, and federal, absolutely. New Year's Day is a federal holiday. Work is closed, businesses are closed, banks are closed. It is also a social holiday. People party, celebrate, etc. And it was a celebration of the Greek deity Janus, thus January. So the new year actually originated from a celebration to what some believe was a deity. So it's all three. All right? So if you got all three, you got the point right. I'm going to go through the rest quickly. Okay, questions? Okay, next one. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Religious, federal, social? Federal and social, correct. Lunar New Year. Religious, absolutely. The New Year is associated with Chinese custom, and in that custom, it is actually religious in nature. Let's look at first day of Black History Month. Federal and social, right? So it's federally recognized and it's social. Next day, Valentine's Day. Social and religious. It is both. Saint Valentine. Absolutely, that's where it's named from. So it's both social and religious. Next one, President's Day. Federal. Not too many people celebrate socially with President's Day. Also, federal, absolutely. Next one, Mardi Gras. Both. Social and religious. Mardi Gras, Shrove Tuesday, is the beginning of Lent, which is a 40-day fast in Christianity. Yes. So social and religious. First day of Women's History Month. Social and federal, right? It's federally recognized, absolutely. Next one, St. Patrick's Day. Religious and social, both, right? Easter Sunday, it's pretty straightforward. Religious. Not federal, not recognized federally. It is social though. Although schools are closed for winter recess, which happens to always fall on Good Friday and Easter Sunday, but it's not a federally recognized holiday. Tax Day. Federal tax day, absolutely. Cinco de Mayo. Social and federal, not religious. It's actually a celebration of independence from Mexico. So it's not U.S. federal, but it is federal. Mother's Day. Social, absolutely. Memorial Day. Social and federal. We get the day off, yep. First day of Pride Month. Social, all right. Father's Day. Social. Juneteenth. Social and now federal, recognized last year. Y'all voted in, so now it's both. Independence Day. Federal and social. Days off from work, right? Labor Day. Federal and social, absolutely. National Hispanic Heritage Month. Social and federal, recognized nationally, right? Columbus Day. Social and federal, right? Halloween.
Religious and social.
Religious and social, absolutely correct. Native American Heritage Month. Social and federal, absolutely. See, there's a trend here with some of these nationally recognized months of celebration, right? Veterans Day. Federal and social. You'll see lots of celebrations, fireworks, things of that nature on Veterans Day. Thanksgiving.
Federal and social.
Federal and social, not religious in nature. Black Friday.
Religious?
It feels like a religion because millions of people ago, but it's social. It's social in nature. There's no, besides the celebration of capitalism, there's no deity that's in there. Christmas Eve.
Religious and social.
Religious and social, absolutely. Christmas Day. Religious, social, and federal. It's a federally recognized holiday, even though we're a quote-unquote secular country. Right? Christmas Day is a federally recognized holiday. New Year's Eve.
Social and religious.
Social and religious. New Year's Eve is not the federal holiday. New Year's Day is the federal holiday. So there's 30 in total, right? So you want to count how many you got absolutely 100% correct. So if you got 5 or more correct, raise your hand. 5 or more correct, raise your hand. Okay, 8 or more, keep your hand up. 10 or more. 10? So, this table's still going? Any others with 10 or more? 10 or more? 8? 10 or more, so it looks like this table has got it. Mabruk, congratulations. We had dinner, now we get some sweets. And for second place, so note, there is a lot of layers to these things. It's not okay to say, okay, I went to a lecture once and I understand it all, right? There are over 200 holidays and celebrations in this country. We're not going to cover them all in a day or even in a semester-long class. It behooves you to do some research before you start engaging in certain activities. All because something is not religious in nature doesn't necessarily mean it should be celebrated. For example, Columbus Day. Is anybody familiar with Columbus Day? What are some issues with Columbus Day? Slavery, absolutely. What else? They didn't discover America, absolutely. What else? Columbus was a mass murderer and rapist. Like in history, documented. He killed his own employees. He used to cut off limbs of the natives and wear them as souvenirs. And this is a man that's being celebrated. So it's not religious, but it also, we should refrain from it. So as you learn, as you discover and experience more and more in the country, you ask questions. That's the real point of this. You want to explore and learn more. And as you learn more, you teach your children, you teach each other, you will be in conversation. That doesn't mean that you push off all celebration, but you create your own space for celebration in a way that you know is aligned with and enhances your Islam. Why celebrate a mass murderer when we can celebrate the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Right? We celebrate things that are meaningful for us, not something that someone else says is meaningful. All right? Jazakallah khair.
اللهم اقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معصيتك ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا به جنتك ومن اليقين ما تهون به علينا مصائب الدنيا ومتعنا اللهم باسماعنا وابصارنا وقواتنا وزد من خشيتنا واجعل الوارث منا واجعل ثارنا على من ظلمنا وانصرنا على من عادانا ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا ولا تجعل الدنيا اكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا وصل اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى اله
We're going to pray Isha next door, so please collect your things and we'll be there in a few minutes inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.